doing to improve your cash flow? We're going to talk about that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, thanks for coming by. If you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, thanks also for coming by. Hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. You can see over my right shoulder, you see that looks like a box. It's actually a pallet, and I'm in the midst of doing a last mile local gig delivery opportunity. But I actually had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to go about doing for this segment of the Gig Geezer, but I think I'm settling in on one thought as we speak. So I'm kind of doing this. I'm thinking and talking at the same time. So I've talked about in recent weeks about what to do with how are you preparing for the summer slowdown in your market. I know that I've talked about in my market, this market is heavily influenced by the main university. So goes the university, so goes really how things go. That involves the gig, it just involves the local economy. When school's in session, things tend to be there's reason to think that it's busy. But I'm talking about cash flow. In fact, I've done a segment of the Gig Geezer on cash flow and how you strategize facets of your business enterprise to ensure that you have cash flow. Okay, that's one way. But another way of improving cash flow deals with what's going out. That's right. That's actually economy. That means administration of your household finances. And who am I to tell you what to do? I want to presume that we're all grown folk in this conversation, and what may work for me may not work for you, but there are certain basic thoughts and principles that should apply. And so for me, I'm looking at, as we're going into the summer months, by the end of the summer, it is conceivable that I can improve my cash flow by about $2,000 a month. At least $1,500, but on the high end, $2,000. And that's significant. That's significant. That's money that can be put back, or more likely to be put back. But I mean, you can also think of it in terms of that money could be redirected into paying down on certain things. But in my case, I'm looking to put back because there are things that I need to do down the road as well. I'm still in a position to handle things, given so far how monthly earnings have trended over the past year. But the outflow of $2,000 is significant. Now, I've also talked about in past Gig Geezer segments about breakpoint. And breakpoint is, bottom line, is the intersection of the upward trend of finance. It is the intersection of upward trend of income with your expenses. And when I speak of your expenses, I'm talking about both business expenses and your home personal expenses. You can't separate you could separate the two in terms of structure, but you can't separate them in terms of handling those finances. You can't. I mean, yes, you can direct money for business, but you also got money for finances that you got to deal with. You got money for your personal home finances. You got rent. You got lights. You got water. You got maybe Wi-Fi. You got whatever else. You may have a vehicle payment. You may have personal credit card payments. You've got maybe subscriptions to other things. And so those things can be a weight. If I were to quote chapter and verse, it talks about lay aside every weight first and sin that's so easy to beset you. And in the context of business, certain debt is a weight. It's like a fucking albatross, and it could really slow you down. It could really fuck with your decisions. It's easy to be more freewheeling with a looser arm swing, so to speak, if I were to use a bowling analogy, in your business decisions when you're not riddled with certain debts. And so for me, I in private, I spoken of how I began to see certain things, I had begun to see things open up for me. But I'm entering into that time period now where it is becoming a reality. And so I just want to share it with y'all. How do you increase your cash flow? That's one of them. Now, earlier this week, I actually checked out someone's live stream, and he was really just laying it on the young guys about you say you're in business, but you're fucking up because you're not using your money wisely. Instead of putting the money back, putting yourself in a position where you can put money back, or you put yourself in a position where you can you have a strategy of looking long term. No, you're turning around buying up cars, houses, going out to eat. I mean, really big dogging it. Steak and lobster for yourself and for whoever else is in your party. And when shit goes wrong in the business, you got no answer. Even in my most recent live stream, in which I had Madame CEO Ruth of Geroute Trucking, we talked about how you got to take a lot of things into consideration when you make that decision to bid on something or accept a bid or whatever it is, and whatever that earnings opportunity is. And I think people fall short, and they fuck themselves out of money because they do what they do. So if I were to share personal things, then that's going to increase my cash flow. The items are one less vehicle to pay for because it'll be paid off, and my personal insurance rates have come down. It's taken a while. I mean, I went through some shit between 2018 and 2020, and it was an inconvenience. But in the greater scheme of things, the inconveniences that it created actually have put me really in a position that I'm in now. So I had to take the good with the bad, but that shit's dropped off, and so finally my insurance rates are beginning to make sense again, and that happens. So we're talking between a car note and insurance. We're talking about savings of $850. When it comes to living situation, that's going to change within the next 2 months, or at the most 3 months. Like I said, by the end of the summer, and we're talking easily, I want to say, in upwards of $1,000 a month. So that's roughly $2,000. That's $2,000 that I don't have to rack my brains over to cover. But at the same time, me being me, I will be looking to earn still that same type of money. God damn it. Some fucker decides to stop right in front of us with a truck full of bricks. I mean, shit. I should flip the camera, but this fucker don't know what the hell he's doing. And we're on a back road in the middle of nowhere. That's what makes it so bad. He just decides to stop. He flips on the emergency lights and stop. And there's a vehicle in front of me, and if I'm not paying attention, guess what? I'd be in the back of that trailer. So this is real time. This is a real time one, y'all. But when I entered into this, when I evolved further into this delivery and transport space, with the addition of the Sprinter/cargo van, I was in a very optimal situation. Very optimal situation. I had little to no things to deal with. I mean, I had car notes, but I didn't have ancillary shit that I'm dealing with. And so I was able to make transactions and go through a transition of things but then you start into the space and you take on water. You're going to take on water when you start a business. The question is, how are you managing it? How are you managing it? Do you have the answer with cash, or are you leveraging it, or is it a combination of both? For me, it was a combination of cash and leveraging. But all the while, I was maintaining. In fact, altogether, I've maintained payments on 4 vehicles. 2 vehicles, 3 of them were before I got this van. Okay. I've already explained that in the past Get Geezer segment, how I ended up with as many vehicle notes. They were all out of necessity. It just so happened that I was in a position to get them. Am I in that position now? Yes, but I don't need them. Okay. But the live stream that I was talking about, the guy was telling folk how he stayed at home while he built up his business and was able to put back money. Sure, he made money to where he could have moved to another part of town and got him a nice apartment and things like that, but no, he stayed home. And he did that by choice. And you know what? There's no shame in that. There's no shame. And so I'm speaking to you as a business person part of the things that you have to take into consideration when you decide to make that decision, are you in a position to take care of things at home in addition to starting business opportunity, business endeavor? Because there are going to be expenses, regardless of what you say. You can talk about putting money back, but there's going to be a depletion of those funds. And really and truly, shit just comes up when you're starting. You realize that you need certain things, and so you go out and make that purchase. You realize that there's a new cost with something that's associated with your business. Well, you cover that shit. And then, meanwhile, you're also thinking about, how am I going to make this shit work? The strategy of creating cash flow, positive cash flow, income. That's what I'm getting at. So, we all go through these phases. And even for me right now, I'm constantly thinking about the increase of positive cash flow, which means newer options. This week, the cash game, in fact, yesterday, the cash game bailed me out yesterday. It completed my day on a day when I was, looking for additional earnings opportunities. It came up, and it was something I was able to accept and complete in 10 minutes. And so you have things like, those are the things that those are the times that you feel, and if for nothing else, you feel as if you accomplished something. You accomplished something that you strategized, and it came to fruition. Yeah, it's a feeling of accomplishment when the strategy comes into fruition. So I may have come across with a bunch of scattered buckshots, but I think I've been on course. I've been on target with what I'm saying. Yes, I am in a position of increasing my cash flow by reducing expenses that have been going out for years now. But at the same time, I'm still constantly looking at how to create options for positive cash flow. And also, it just so happens that it's in a time of the year where, at least in my market, many of the things revolve around the main university, and things tend to slow down. So, if I'm doing that, if I'm doing these things, if I'm doing this balancing act as I'm describing, I stand to be in a better position of coming out of the summer when things may pick up down the road. So that's all I have to share with this segment of the Get Geezer. You may have gotten something out of it, you may not have. You may have been inspired, you may not have been. But if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.